Hello friends, welcome back. Myself Chetanjeet Singh. In the last unit, Unit 10.1, we explored how India manages disasters through institutions like NDMA, SDMA, DDMA, NIDM, and NDRF. We saw how these organizations work together from planning to response to keep communities safe. Now, in Unit 10.2, we'll widen our lens. Today, we're stepping out of India's boundaries and looking at how the entire world has come together to reduce disaster risks. You will see that disasters do not respect borders, and that is why global cooperation becomes so important. In this unit, we will look at three major international frameworks. The first one is the Hyogo framework for action. The second one, the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. And the third one is Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. We'll explore what each one of them means in simple language, why they matter, and how they are connected to each other and to India's own disaster management efforts. So, let's begin our journey through the world of global DRR. First of all, the Hyogo framework. To understand today's global disaster strategies, we first need to go back to 2005. That year, the world adopted the Hyogo framework for action, the first ever global plan to reduce disaster losses. It came after devastating events like the Indian Ocean tsunami, which reminded everyone that prevention is as important as response. The message of Hyogo was simple. If countries want to save lives and protect development, they must reduce risk, not just to react to disasters. Hyogo asked countries to make disaster risk reduction a national and a local priority, strengthen institutions, study risk more carefully, spread awareness and education, and prepare better for emergencies. In short, Hyogo helped the world shift from disaster response to disaster preparedness. But by 2015, it was clear that more had to be done, especially with climate change increasing the frequency of extreme events. And so, the world moved to its next and more advanced framework, that is to be known as the Sendai framework. It was adopted in 2015 and is the world's most important agreement on disaster risk reduction today. Think of it as a global roadmap that guides countries until the year 2030. While Hyogo focused on building systems, Sendai goes deeper. It tells countries how to prevent losses, how to save lives, and how to build resilience in a warming world. It has even global targets, which includes reducing deaths, reducing the number of affected people, cutting economic losses, protecting schools, hospitals, and other critical services, increasing the DRR strategies at national and local levels, supporting developing nations, and expanding early warning coverage for everyone. These targets clearly show a shift. The world is now focusing on prevention, preparedness, and early warnings, not just rescue after a disaster. To achieve these targets, Sendai highlights four priority areas. The first one is understanding risk, strengthening disaster governance, investing in risk reduction, and finally, preparing for disasters and building back better. This includes everything from risk maps and resilient infrastructure to community training and climate adaptation. A powerful message of Sendai is that everyone has a role to play: governments, businesses, researchers, communities, and individuals. It also connects disaster risk reduction with climate change, recognizing that rising temperatures, extreme rainfall, cyclones, and heat waves are making the world more vulnerable. How India aligns with Sendai. India has strongly aligned its plans with the Sendai framework. For example, the National Disaster Management Plan 2019 directly reflects Sendai's priorities. State governments across India now have their own DRR strategies. Early warning systems from cyclones to heat waves cover a large part of the population. NDMA's approach of building back better is used widely after floods, cyclones, and earthquakes. We also see clear success stories: Odisha's zero casualty cyclone management model, Kerala's early warning for landslides, heat action plans in several cities. These examples prove how global frameworks are helping India save lives and reduce damage. Now we see why these frameworks matter today. As climate change makes disasters more severe, frameworks like Sendai help countries to plan ahead, avoid losses, build safer infrastructure, protect ecosystems, and strengthen communities. They also promote cooperation between countries because when disasters strike, shared knowledge and global standards can make all the difference. Now let's move to another major global framework, the SDGs, adopted in 2015. There are 17 global goals designed to end poverty, protect nature, and ensure prosperity for all by 2030. At first glance, they may seem different from disaster management, but in reality, they are deeply linked. Why? Because disasters can destroy years of development in just hours. A flood can push families back into poverty. A cyclone can damage schools and hospitals, and droughts can ruin livelihoods. So, without reducing risk, the SDGs simply cannot be achieved. Many SDGs target actually mention disaster resilience directly, including goals related to cities, climate action, forest, and poverty. Let's look at the most important ones. The SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. SDG 11 asks the world to make cities safe, resilient, and sustainable. It includes targets to reduce deaths and economic losses from disasters, create urban plans that consider disaster risks, improve resilience against floods, storms, and heat waves. This is especially important because more than half of the world's population now lives in cities. The next SDG is the SDG 13 on climate action. SDG 13 is all about acting on climate change. It targets call for strengthening resilience to climate related disasters, ensuring every country has DRR strategies, making sure local governments also implement DRR plans. In many ways, SDG 13 and the Sendai framework work hand in hand. Climate adaptation is disaster risk reduction. Now we move on to the next SDG, that is the SDG 15, Life on Land. This goal focuses on protecting forests, restoring ecosystems, and preventing land degradation. Healthy ecosystems act as natural barriers. Forest reduces landslides, wetlands absorb floodwater, grasslands prevent droughts and desertification. So, protecting nature is not just environmental work, it is also risk reduction. Now, putting it all together, when we look at the Hyogo framework, the Sendai framework, and the SDGs together, one thing becomes clear: disaster risk reduction and sustainable development are inseparable. Stronger development leads to lower disaster risk, and lower disaster risk leads to stronger, more stable development. India's own progress from cyclone shelters in Odisha to early warnings in Kerala shows how global ideas can create local impact. So, friends, in this unit, we explored how global frameworks guide nations towards a safer and more resilient future. From Hyogo's early vision to Sendai's detailed targets to the SDG's broad development goals, each of these frameworks plays a vital role in reducing disaster risk across the world. And India is an active part of this global journey. Now that we understand how global frameworks shape disaster management, our next step is to look at the laws and guidelines within India that put these ideas into action. In Unit 10.3, we will explore the Disaster Management Act 2005, key environmental laws, and important urban regulations that make our cities and communities safer. These laws form the backbone of India's disaster governance system. Until then, thank you for joining me and see you in the next session.